Hey, how's it going this Saturday? I just got done doing a practice on my guitar stuff at BJO, and my hands are tired. And I thought, man, dude, I got to get into Richard Wurmbrand's reading that I've been doing for the past couple months on my own personal Facebook page. And this is from the founder of Voice of the Martyrs, hence the Voice of the Martyrs banner up there and there. That's for sure. And if you're into equal rights and justice and all that jazz that I know so many of you are into nowadays, because I've seen you guys out taking the streets this year. So, man, I commend you for being for equal rights and justice. And, man, I take it you are pretty consistent in that belief of equal rights and justice. So you will take up the voice of the martyrs, man, those Christians that are being persecuted all over the world. And I would imagine you guys would be in pretty much an uproar over that as well. And so, hence, I'm reading the Richard Wurmbrand Answer to the Atheist Handbook, the Atheist Handbook was written in Russia back in 1961 by Moscow's Academy of Science. And Wurmbrand was arrested back in those days and imprisoned for, I think it was around 11, 12, 13, 14, something like that years, and treated quite poorly because he was a Christian man in those days. And so if you're for censoring things, if any of you are into getting rid of things, censoring ideas, censoring books, and censoring different people's thoughts and opinions on things, and then you might want to pay attention to history a little bit, or else you will end up getting right back in there. So anyway, this is a chapter he has called Looking to Jesus of Nazareth. And this one piggybacked on his talk about who is God, which was a little bit metaphysical and kind of cosmological proof kind of stuff. And but now we're looking at Jesus of Nazareth. Short chapter, so it ain't going to take too long, so you guys should pay attention. It says, look to the highest and best exemplar of mankind that you know, to the most beloved being, and you will see him, however dimly, something of the Father. But there is a Son of Man in whom you can see God in a special way. It is Jesus of Nazareth. Because he was not only the Son of Man, he was God incarnate. God knows everything, but there are some things that he knew only from outside. A judge can know the whole penal code, the whole science of penitentiaries, and still not be able to judge righteously, because he has never lived the life of a prisoner. 5 years of prison, lived day by day in a jail, are something entirely different from 5 years of prison described for an offense in the penal code and pronounced in a sentence. God cannot lie, nor does he know by experience any other infractions of the moral code, whereas these sins are very elements of life with which you are surrounded every day. Neither God nor holy angels can die. Death is for them only a spectacle on which they look from outside. Therefore Christ, the Son of God, became man with all the attributes and limitations of a human family. A male being, he knew the temptation of women, a poor carpenter in an oppressed nation. He knew the temptation of rebellion or of dishonesty, a prisoner who was whipped and then crucified. He knew the temptation of despair and resentment. He knew without committing sin such depths of evil that the evangelist considered it wise not to record what happened in his life between the ages of 12 and 30. But they did record that during his 3.5 years of public ministry, his enemies were frequently offended by his friendship with scoundrels and loose women. Jesus, the Son of God, chose to partake of human nature with all of its liabilities and to taste of death, thus enabling himself to be not only the righteous judge of man, but also his defender and savior. The life of Jesus and his death on Golgotha's cross, apart from his efficacy in the salvation of man, was God's way of obtaining a personal, intimate knowledge of human problems. And now, having identified us in the flesh, he understands us better and can forgive us better. The kingdom of heaven has come closer to us. To what could we compare this great condescension of the Son of God? Could we liken it to the attempt on the part of Osborne to better the harsh conditions in U.S. prisons by having himself jailed and living it for many years the tortured life of a prisoner, all to prepare himself for this valiant crusade afterward? Would we liken it to the deeds of some doctors who have injected themselves with virulent microbes in order to help their fellow men through the experience thus gained? Oh, that kind of has to do with today, doesn't it? We could liken it to the deeds of some doctors who have injected themselves. Oh, we just read that one. Hey, I read it again, man. It must really be relevant today, right? So before you get the vaccine, right, make sure that your doctors are getting the vaccine, right? And make sure that their doctors are getting the vaccine, and all the way up the ladder to whoever's paying for everything, they're getting the vaccine. No, I'm just joking. Just messing with you guys. But no, these likenesses do not tell us anything, because in these cases, one man risked his life for another man, his fellow creatures, whereas for Jesus Christ it was entirely different. Christ is God, and in his sight our word is microscopic. All the nations are before him as a drop of water in a bucket and as a bit of dust on a scale. His great deed can be likened rather to the absurdity of love which a man should have for ill-smelling, blood-sucking insects. They tremble between the fingers of the man who wishes to kill them, but he would become a bug, live the life of a bug with its propensity to harm men, and die the death of a bug. He does this in order that, having regained his former estate, in the end he might be a just judge of insects, protect them from their ruthless exterminators, defend them with authority, and make of them harmless benefactors. I know that this example will offend many, but it must have seemed incomprehensible to the angels that Messiah Christ should choose to be incarnate in an ugly, loathsome, and sinful species. Christ descended not merely to the level of man in the body of a young Virgin Mary through a process of fertilization which remains ever a mystery. He was reduced to a mere embryo and passed 9 months in utero to become a babe, then a youth, then a man. And what kind of man? He was incarnate not in a hero like Bar Kaba, not in a great imitate like Apollonius of Tanya. He probably should have used if he was living in our day, he would have said like a Captain America or something like that. Not in a philosopher like Plato. In order to save man, every man, Christ had to be immersed in matter as deeply as mankind is drowned. Therefore, after subjecting himself to normal processes of human development, he became a Jewish carpenter, a member of a social class without culture. He had a poor language. He sometimes had to engage in discussions on a humiliating level, because this was the level of the men and with whom he debated. He knew weakness, anger, hurt, fear, and he was put in a class with criminals. Those things in Jesus Christ which are offensive to men become to those who understand added incentives to adore his magnificent humility and unfathomable love. As you ask Christ why he brought this sacrifice, he answers with majestic simplicity that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. He sends as the Father has sent him. We cannot say what God is, but looking to Christ, we understand something of his character. We see that what expresses God best is love, righteousness, and loving kindness towards mankind. We perceive that he has such love, and that this love made him give his Son to die for us. Cool. So that's his little chapter on look to Jesus of Nazareth. It followed again who is God, and it'll kind of kick into this chapter called the creation. And maybe I'll just read it because it's only a whopping 1 page. So it says, "But why this detour?" question. about the creation. Why must we see God in nature, in man, in Jesus Christ? Why can we not see him face to face? In the Babylonian Talmud, it is said that a heathen emperor demanded of a rabbi, "Show me God." The rabbi answered, "You will see him with your eyes on one condition. First, you must look 5 minutes into the sun." The emperor looked at the sun, but immediately had to lower his eyes. Then the rabbi told him, "You cannot look for 1 minute at the sun, which is insignificant to the creation of God, which is a insignificant creation of God. And yet you wish to see the one who gives the stars their brilliance." Evidently, for a modern intellectual, faith has its difficulties. He sees that in a world everything happens according to natural laws. From one thing another develops according to precise laws, as the things which exist are the result of a former development. Mountains and valleys and rivers and living beings are not creations in the usual sense of the word, or as stars are not creations but developments from some former state. Some stars are old, ready to be extinguished. Others are in full maturity. Others are baby stars. Stars of all ages coexist in the universe. Then when did the creation take place? The number of species which have disappeared is estimated at 500,000. The species which exist now may not always have existed. It is known that there is variation within species. In this context, not every living being is a direct creation of God. The difficulty disappears when we consider God not simply as a being who has created a world. He's a living and life-giving God. He moves everything continually according to physical laws, which are expressions of his fixed character. Therefore, it is so difficult to apprehend him. Sorry about that. Heraclitus said, "It pleases nature to hide itself." This is even truer about God, of whom Solomon says, "The Lord said he would dwell in a dark cloud." 1 Kings 8:12. The finer a being is, the more it sheds blessing, itself remaining in the shadow. So is God, and therefore he remains unobserved. We have to seek the source of our blessing. Luther says, "Nothing is small without God being even smaller. Nothing is big without God being even bigger. Nothing is short without God even being shorter. Nothing is long without God being even longer. Nothing is wide without God being even wider. Nothing is narrow without God being even narrower." Elsewhere in his writings, he adds, "Nothing can be more present a being and more central than God and his might." And we do not observe God except when his spirit moves, as we do not observe the air except when the wind blows. It is only through a spiritual rebirth which faith in the sacrifice of Christ gives you. That in you are awakened the senses of the Spirit, and you feel the presence of the Lord. "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God," Jesus says. You see, you do know God, though you cannot say to those who are not pure now, he is. Let me restate that. It says, "You see, you do know God, though you cannot say to those who are not pure how he is, because you yourself are no more. You are changed from glory to glory into his likeness." So interesting, cool little section there as well. On that was his little thing on the creation. So anyway, that's my little weekend reading, and I enjoy reading, so that's why I'm doing this. And I'm reading some Noam Chomsky too. If you guys are interested in stuff that's really kind of neat of our culture today, you might want to get his. I'm reading his book on the media from back in 90 or 91. And wow, it's a lot about propaganda and about slogans. I don't know if you guys have heard any slogans in 2020, but he really is kind of leery of slogans, and he says why in there. So that's kind of interesting. A little bit of Noam, and I grew up kind of with Noam Chomsky from my father and my brother. So anyway, I have a little book of his that I thought would be relevant to today as well. So you guys have a good one. Okay, take care, and we'll maybe see you next week. Okay, have a great Christmas. Bye bye.